Hey everybody, welcome to Samudra Shakti Online for August 2021. Glad you're here. So Samudra Shakti Online originated out of a live event in the United States in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. These are the four women who helped plan the event. It was a teachers gathering. All the licensed teachers in Anusara yoga came together 2 years ago in 2019. And Deb Payne, myself, Midori Martin, and Kim Friedman were on the planning team for making that happen. We wanted to keep that energy alive that came out of Samudra Shakti, the live event in Colorado. Tonight, we have Will Doran joining us, and he is one of the anchors of Anusara Yoga. He is humble and has helped tremendously behind the scenes since 2012, helping Anusara grow its internet and web presence, as well as its social media and YouTube presence. Will has a rich life steeped in cross-cultural and diverse studies of religion and spirituality. He is an Anusara certified teacher, and his parents were world travelers, and they were open as he was growing up to discuss different worldviews and traditions. And from this, he gained a curiosity towards the diverse way people experience God and form personal practices. Over the years of constant reading, investigation, and practice, Will was drawn to study yoga. It was first as a way to heal various body issues, yet he found it to be a powerful tool for grounding into the present moment and embodiment. He continued to explore many types of yoga and wrestled with the diverse views and techniques presented, often by other teachers who maybe didn't offer as much depth and especially were not as diverse in presenting clearly the teachings to Westerners. When Will discovered Anusara Yoga, it was a huge mind, body, and heart opener for him. He found it unique in the way that it brought in the play of spirit and grace into the physical action of alignment and movement. He was also introduced then to non-dual tantric philosophy through John Friend and Paul Mueller Ortega. And it blew open his heart and his mind into new dimensions. Will constantly is sharing his expertise, his depth of knowledge, not only with the Anusara community globally, but also behind the scenes when he works on the Anusara website and the content within the pages. So I'd like to stop this screen share and turn this over to Will and welcome him and his topic of the 7 attributes of the divine and how they are relative to our health and well-being. So take it away, Will.
Greetings. Thank you everyone for showing up. I just going to change my screen view here though. There you go, make it a little bit more visual. In the olden days, you would go on a pilgrimage and you would take whatever means of transportation to get together to sit in a circle around your peers, around masters, around your students, around your teachers, and to talk about the deep things of consequence of being a human being. And right now we are blessed with the technical opportunity to come together around the world through the internet and through recorded media. So it's just this amazing expansion of consciousness that we're experiencing through this media. And it gives us an opportunity to discuss some of these more profound issues. Now, the question really comes up as why should we? Why should we take our time to study? Why should we go through the process of really making sense of some of these esoteric concepts? And the answer really is just to see how the highest is revealed within ourselves. You know, then when we understand that the attributes of the divine are present with ourselves, how do we align with them? How do we live from that place? So we take this from the philosophical and the kind of abstract into the very grounded, the very real. What does it mean for us to be looking at these attributes that are thinking, for many of us, I think that they're outside of ourselves, they're the divine. But in our tantric practice, we realize that the divine is present. We are the physical expression in the human form of what that divine unfolding is. And so we want to reflect on these attributes. We want to see, well, what are they? How do they make sense to me? And then how do I express them? And that's what my talk is about today, is just going through these. And you can see by my notes that we have some guidance that we can go through. Now, the first of these things that I really want to bring up is Maya. And Maya has been, defined in a number of different ways, but the most loving definition of Maya that I have seen is not so much the illusion of life, but actually the gift that spirit gives us of not knowing, of not being completely connected, of not having it all, not being able to do everything. All these wonderful attributes are already there in the wholeness of spirit. So in the dance of the divine, we get to get born and then merge back up into that higher knowledge. From a place of not knowing, we go through life experiences, which really are the journey that takes us back to that unification awareness, what we know as the path of yoga. So all of our existence really is a matter of following this path, a path of concealment and revelation. The divine in all its fullness, for its own delight and play, has chosen to conceal itself using the power of Maya to create our existence, our awareness. And yet at the core, it's all there. We just get to journey into discovering it. So when I research, to go through all my notes, teacher trainings, teacher manuals, and different resources that I had that would give me more breadth to the attributes, it was really kind of interesting how little there was. And I wanted to give a shout out right from the start to Bill Doran and his beautiful book called Finding the Midline. So in that, he takes a lot of time going through and gives from his own personal experience as a lawyer, what these attributes were for him. And I really give a shout out, because there's a lot in there and a very excellent resource. So Bill and I both agree that there are 7 attributes, and some of our places that this is discussed say there are 6. And so when we go through our invocation, we're familiar with the expression Sat Chit Ananda. So I think of those as 3 things combined together, and you cannot separate out beingness from the Chit Ananda, which we'll discuss shortly. So what we really come to is that there is an absolute, there is an unchanging truth of being, and that, as in the Shiva Sutra, it states, consciousness is everything. What a mind blower. That's very different than saying you have a world and then God's somewhere else, and that God is somewhere else and you're doing your own thing. When we recognize that consciousness is everything, we also recognize that what is above is being reflected below. That from that one source, we really have a base, we have a common ground. And what more important thing is there, especially relevant for our time when there's a lot of negativity and pessimism, is to know that this nihilistic, fear maybe even, or woundedness that we experience, many of us in our culture, that it really can be methodically worked through to get a sense that maybe my definition of God, the divine spirit, union consciousness, maybe that can be understood a little bit more if we look about how its attributes are relative to us and take meaning on the day-to-day level. So I'm going to go through on each of these attributes that I bring up. You can see on the screen that there's a little part on how to express it. And if you want to contribute maybe a note that maybe one of our moderators can share later, if there's something that comes to your mind or a question that any of these points raised, please do feel free just to send a little message, and we'll address that in time. And like the ancients gathering together to discuss a point, I'm a firm believer that, there's different views, different angles that we come in. So we take a major subject, 3 letters, sut. How does that make, how does that bring meaning into your life? How can just beingness, one unified whole? So when we look at what we see around us, we see mostly diversity. We don't just see one pulsing plasma field. We see infinite possibility expressed out into the universe. We see it expressed in the things that we can say, that is just wonderful. And that which makes us really feel that, maybe there's more shadow than we really recognize. All of this is valid. All of this is something that is there for us to learn. So when we live from a place of being that is having that higher self in the forefront, then we start to tap into the creative powers of who we are. We start to realize that if we're finding a communal thread, from our heart, from our mind, our spirit, even physical manifestation, the molecules of the universe, when we can recognize those things as being the shared field of play, then we could start treating each other more from that heart. We could start to engage life more fully. You can find there's a lot to be explored out there. Curiosity. This is a wonderful gift. As Paul Mueller Ortega would say, is that we are living in the penthouse of the world. I really just think that it's so important for us to realize that the base of existence really is something that gives us the opportunity to look for spirit everywhere and make that part of our life. This is what I call peering through the eyes of God. Or actually was inspired, from some poetry. Looking through the eyes of God means that you're seeing yourself in all things, in all others. And then that seeing and recognition becomes that fuller awareness of spirit residing in all things. So Chit is the play of consciousness. It is that presence of the supreme that is reflected in all things. It's the prakasha, we call it, Sanskrit term, for that self-luminosity, the light of consciousness being reflected everywhere. So when we realize that the base of all things is full of this light of consciousness, then we can start to reflect it back out. This is how I mean by peering through the eyes of God, seeing that light, and then taking it back out there, taking it into the world. So when you reflect upon your true nature as part of the whole, you can realize that you're part of the ingredients of the bigger picture, that you are a unique expression, and that unique expression of the light really is, the spirit having play, that we are dancing and it's said that Shiva creates the supreme through his power of Shakti for the delight of it, for the play of it. But it takes work to get there. So as we parse this out a little bit, we'll start to realize how these more lofty ideas become more and more realizable and more something that we can act upon. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is to connect to spirit by seeing the light of it in the whole. And then when we see that, we can recognize even our own talents, and we can offer those talents to the world. This is something that is really huge, is that now is a time that we're being called to see that we are part of a bigger picture. One of the gifts that the unfortunate pandemic that we're experiencing is going to reveal is that it brought more of us into a way of thinking about similar thoughts, working at similar problems, seeing what's being revealed, and how that we could collaboratively work together on this process of coming into more light, coming into more spirit. And why? So we can experience more of this wonderful quality called ananda, the joy and the delight, the bliss of creative power and expression. So as I mentioned before, it said that Shiva creates the world for his own delight, for the dance and the play, and that's the joy, the base of what we are is something that is nurturing, that is loving, that is not going through the trials and the tribulations, the challenges that we mortal underlings are going through. We mirror the above, but in the under that illusion of Maya, or separateness, we get to go through the process of awakening to our own strengths and their abilities, and then how we can express them in very creative and meaningful ways. So this means that we are part of the pulse of Ananda, but we are also creating it at the same time. We're not just experiencing the movie, we're writing the script and acting in it. So what kind of role do we want to play? What kind of creative engaging do we want to do to experience more of the sweetness of life? And I love that in the iconography from Hindu culture and the murtis, or the statues, such as in the paintings you could see of Ganesha. And Lord Ganesha is like that part of our higher self calling us into spirit. He holds a little noose and a knife or a club and a sword that he cuts us from our being locked into our ego, and he pulls us deeper into a spirit. And in the iconography, you see him with this beautiful long trunk reaching over and pointing down to a little bowl of candy, of sweets. And it's saying, like, the work we do, the effort, the discipline, is that we get to experience more Ananda. We get to have some kind of a payback for the work. There is something there for us to get from all this experience of being in the world and showing up, doing the work. And ultimately, that sense of service, being partnered with spirit, it becomes the way we are. It's not even work anymore. It's dipping time and again into the Ananda. And when you're out in the world and you're worn and you're weary, you stop, you take a couple moments. Even if it's just to sit with a cup of tea in your hand, or to look out at a beautiful sky, you just stop, and that's the Ananda, just kind of bubbling in, filling the heart, giving you some kind of a recharge, because it is that which we know as being the intrinsic goodness. It's the light of spirit that really brings meaning and purpose to your life when you're in partnership that way. Because when you are of service to others, you recognize that you are serving yourself, and you are serving this higher consciousness having its expression in the human existence. So I love the concept of delighting in your creativity, and it's not just, your whole life should be creative flow. And it should be the way you cook and make choices, the way you paint your room, the way you do whatever, the expression, the way you sew clothes, the way you enjoy your asana practice, or the moment of deep stillness in your meditation. Ultimately, we are meant to join in the delight. We are meant to tap into it. And when we're pulled out of it, get that sense that Ganesha is pulling you back in, reeling you in to say, hey, come take another sweet from the bowl. Sit, enjoy the delight. So once we get to that place, that we have Sat Chit Ananda as a base, then we start looking at the other attributes. And I think that Shri is just one of the most alluring and compelling parts. In fact, when I was new to Anusara, and John Friend and the teachers I was taking, they would talk about experiencing Shri. It just, oh my God, it just blew my heart open and made me start thinking that, wow, there's a quality of being Shri and grace go hand in hand together. And it's that auspiciousness of the Supreme being expressed all around us. It's the creative energy that connects us to empathy and to service to others, because we see that light that is the unified field that draws us together. And it is moving. It's not static. It's alive. It's vibrant. Shri is something that brings beauty into nature, brings beauty into relationships, brings deep intimacy from the heart and from the spirit, so that we in the collective consciousness can again mirror this back out. We want to look to see, it's not just a dour world, even though there is shadow. Ultimately, Shri means that there's only light. And so we keep augmenting the light. And we do that by fostering attitudes, behaviors that reflect spirit's abundance. So when you live in a sense of scarcity, you will experience more scarcity. You'll see more scarcity, and you'll see where maybe you're not getting your share. But if you start to turn that around and you look for the vibrancy of life, that intrinsic goodness, then you can start to realize how abundant everything is. You know, when you get out of a situation, like I know people who have been in very heavy smoke from fires. And when the fire goes away, they're just like, oh my God, I can breathe again. How exciting is that? There's vibrancy in the clean air, to be able to see the sky again, to see the colors. Then even to see with compassionate eyes the pressure that we are going through, from all these external forces in our life. And that sadness or that weight, or maybe even the empathy of knowing loss and seeing that's that vibrant pulse of Shri too. It's not all just high in the sky roses. You know, it's a deep connection where you see that we are intimately connected into the light, and we are part of the equation to create more of it, more beauty and harmony. So the presence of joy is more abundant. So these are the things that we can do as we act with honor and we create that intimacy with spirit. Now, I've learned just in simple ways that intimacy with spirit means recognizing that I don't have all the answers. I'm not all knowing. I can't do everything, but I can tap into that loving nature, that intrinsic goodness, and ask for help, or use my mind to project an image of what I would like to see, or move into that place where I see that Shri and spirit and the powers of transformation are moving all around. And even though I don't have the answers of where it's taking us, I could recognize that base, the attribute of the light and the goodness of spirit is everywhere. Once we start getting that concept down, we move into exploring what freedom is. Now, spirit, or the divine, if you will, Shiva, Shakti in play, can do absolutely anything. They're free to create, to destroy, to sustain, to conceal, to reveal. All these acts, you know, are completely out there. And so when we start to think about, well, what is freedom to me? It really requires that we're cultivating a certain sense of autonomy in the collective whole. So we get to experience freedom, but the caveat there is we are also required to take into consideration the consequences of what we do. And that, you know, within the bondage of our existence, you know, we have to apply discipline and discernment, tools that are very, very important for knowing that my freedom is not going to actually take away from someone else, or my freedom has to be balanced out in a way that my choices really create more of that ananda. So when we are aware of our karmic response to our thoughts, our actions, our intentions, even the unspoken word has power and weight to it. We can bring those powers into being and extend out, using love as a base for who we are. You know, whenever I'm not really sure if I'm stepping over an edge or not, I stop to pause to really ask, is this a love-based action? Is this serving the greater good or the whole? And so in that taking responsibility, I'm looking to partner with spirit to experience my level of freedom within this limited range, so that the freedoms are really an expression of a really truly and authentic owning the sense of connection, of seeing through the eyes of God, and recognizing that my freedoms are just a tool within a toolbox, that they are not free will to do whatever I want without any check or balance. Then I love the attribute Purnatva. You know, it is that complete fullness and peace and perfection. You know, I love knowing that even in my limited, maybe if you will, even flawed ways, that I'm held within a container of a purity, that there's this place that is undefiled by the shadow, the absence of light. So when I think about it, it's like there's the recognition that there's a freedom and a fullness and a purity to just being how we are, looking to cultivate a little bit more of the peace, the ananda. We can move and remember our own divine essence and imprint, that we could, through our actions, through our studies, through our intentions, really honor the person that we are and all aspects of our personality, because that they're not meant to be anybody else's. You know, we are given a gift of individual perfection, and that perfection could be the process that takes us deeper and deeper into the understanding of the bigger scope of what the divine is being expressed as human beings. So when we want to connect more and more to the Shri, the positive, the fullness of life, we really want to let go of the negative messaging. And we want to move into the sense that we're saying, like, I am part of the highest. I am part of this Purnatva that is full and not lacking. And time and again, it's proven that when we focus our direction of thought and intention in one way, you augment that aspect, you augment that. And so as we project these highest of intentions, and through the way that we express ourselves, the way that we study and we learn and we open and we refine and modify, that we are really Purnatva unfolding, that we are part of the process. And the more we recognize our own intrinsic value, the more we can let go of trying to fulfill someone else's expectations, someone else's should list of what we should do, should think, should be, should act. And then we become wiser beings. Spanda as the seventh attribute is, to me, the explanation of existence. You know, pulsation, it's energy at play. So I love quantum physics and looking at the whole nature of reality and the dimensions of reality. And when you think of Sat as being the first dimension, the singularity, beingness, wholeness, and then Sat breaks into something that's not just whole anymore. It's a recognition of its own power, its own Shakti. So now you have this pulsation, you have this what I am and what I can do. And it becomes further and further apart as an expansion of contrasting energies. So recently in a conversation with a friend, came to mind. We were talking about the old toy called the spirograph. I don't know if any of you had one of those. It was a little thing that you would draw, and you would have like a little pen in the metal, and you'd follow a little pattern around. Maybe some of you know, like the pattern of the tree of life, the little leaves that you would draw. Well, you could just keep filling in this design. And this is a metaphor for consciousness taking every possible manifestation available. In the field of infinite possibility, we are filling in the blanks. And this whole game of hide and seek, that is the pulsation of being, is the divine experiencing everything. The divine saying, what would it be like to be this way, that way? All these different, contrary energies of yes and no, of night and day, male and female, freedom, bondage, in and out, high tide, low tide, all the different things, life and death. There's this pulsation. It's all unfolding. So in the bigger realm of things, what we are doing is moving into awareness that we are part of the whole. And for us to experience, we have to cultivate and create quiet time. So we align with our highest aspirations outside the momentum of just doing. So we have to find space. We have to be part of that creator energy that makes room for us to understand these other attributes, to explore it, to meditate on it, to journal about it, to write about it, to talk to your friends about it. We have to be willing to go into what is unfamiliar territory. And in that, you start to realize that you are filling out who you are. I think that's one of the reasons why I really love to read. It's my habit for decades now of get up in the morning and do a meditation and then sit and read for a while, expand my understanding. And most of the time it's philosophical treatises and commentaries and study, but a lot of times it's just, books about humanity. When someone tells their story, they're pulsing, they're expanding that knowledge of what it's like to grow up in the South, or to be, a politician, or to do all the infinite number of stories that we tell. We're able to expand our sense of who we are by taking on this, by taking in someone else's story and studying it. Own your own power of choice and the opening, closing of opportunities that present themselves. I think that was a line that came from Bill Dorgan's Finding the Midline. I absolutely love that. Own your own power of choice and the opening and closing of opportunities that present themselves. So empowerment is the word behind that. Choice is empowerment. Choice is choosing something within the spectrum of polarity, of contrast. And you choose something based on how you see, the world playing out. And when you look at the world and you say, I choose to bring in more of the beauty aspect of it. I choose to be a more service to others. I look a little bit less to see what I'm getting out of the situation and see that I could contribute. Then you're coming from the highest. And then you're seeing the world as a field of infinite possibilities playing themselves out just for the delight of it. Infinite possibilities in a field of Purna, bathed in Shri, the light of existence, in that wonderful, field of Sat Chit Ananda. And then there's freedom in that. When we ultimately come to the place of seeing ourselves from a higher place, from the bigger self, then we're coming to that place that a yogi experiences freedom. They're in this more intimate relationship with spirit. And then we become alchemists in a way. Our vision, our guided speech, our willingness to serve These are things that bring more meaning to others, that shares the conversation of spirit having its play in the human realm. I want to take a moment, let's see how we're doing time-wise. Yeah, we got a little bit of time. To just look at the Anusara invocation, because I looked at it and say, wow, these attributes that we're talking about are present right in the very root of what we chant at the beginning of our yoga classes. Om says it all, everything contained. That Namah Shivaya, Shri. You just see that, you know, I remember John Friend was talking about the word Nama. It's like my mind is blown. I just like, oh, there's so much light. And in that, that spanda of Chit Ananda, this pulsation of this dynamic play of the divine. And it's so perfect. It doesn't need anything to validify it. It doesn't need any support. It is just a state of such freedom that it's radiant light. This is one of the reasons why I love Anusara yoga, is that we go deep into the philosophy. We go deep into the attributes, looking at why we're showing up. We actually put the philosophical horse before the cart. Say we come to our practice to be able to go into this deeper place. And not only just to study it as a mental experience, but experience of the heart. Anusara yoga is a spiritual practice of the heart. So here's just a quick little, I mentioned finding the midline and Bill Dorgan's name a couple times. The Anusara immersion manual, it lists these attributes, it calls the 6 attributes, and doesn't really go much depth into it. So that's why a discussion like this one and looking at Bill Dorgan's Finding the Midline for wonderful exploration of that is just absolutely delightful. And this A Concise Dictionary of Indian Philosophy, it's a wonderful dictionary of Sanskrit terms. And if you are a student of yoga and a student of these deeper meanings, it's a wonderful resource. And my last slide here is just how you can find me on my website and get a general sense of my services and mentoring for students on the path to expanding their yoga teaching skills. And then I do classes through Zoom and I have recorded videos. So at that, I would just like to say thank you very much for being here. I'm going to turn this back to Lisa.
And I just want to thank you guys all for coming. I'm going to hand this back to Will for a final farewell. So I'm going to stop my screen share and Will, you're going to lead us out of this live event.
All right. All right. So I just would like you to just take your hands together to your heart and close your eyes and take several long breaths in and out. Recognize that you're drawing in oxygen from the atmosphere around you and it's moving through your body. Keep breathing steady and even. That which creates the air moves into your body, into your cells. It fuels your body, it fuels your mind, and it gives you the power to reflect it back out. We are a walking mirror of the divine. From my heart, I bow in recognition of who you are. I'd like you to open your eyes, look to your screen, and whether you have gallery mode on or just one scene, I want you to see and peer through the eyes of God. That's so many beautiful eyes, so many beautiful faces that we are. Namaste.